Welcome to Brews Business. My name is Jacob Dubois, and today we are chatting with Kaylyn Blair, a career coach and resume writer with AOK Resumes and Career Coaching. Kaylyn helps new grads and career changers, mostly millennials, land their dream job, pursue higher education, and find clarity in the future. Kaylyn, welcome to Brews Business.
Thank you, Jacob. I'm really excited to be here today.
This is going to be so fun. But before we start with the questions, we always test the brew. Kaylyn, what are we drinking?
So today we are sampling one of Starbucks holiday flavors. It's the caramel brulee latte. So cheers. Let's see how it goes. Oh, that's good.
Wow.
I like it. I'm a huge caramel fan, so I was interested to see what they would do with the brulee part of it, but it's nice.
Yeah, that is certainly a treat for me. I typically drink, coffee in the morning, and I always have it black. So this is like a whole different ball game. But I thought it was going to be like super sweet and kind of overpowering. But I think honestly they kind of nailed it. Like, it's of course sweet, but you can definitely taste the caramel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Usually comes with a little bit of whipped cream too, which is it is a holiday treat. It's not your everyday beverage, but I thought it was good for today.
Yeah, perfect choice, especially this time of year. It's a little colder depending on where you are.
Yeah, I almost got it iced, but then went for the hot because Denver had its first snow today. So I was very excited about that.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't got any earlier. It's kind of late this year, but I'll take it.
That's perfect. Cool. So talk us through what you've been up to. I want to hear, I know you just graduated pretty recently and you started a business, but I want to hear kind of the evolution of where you've been, what you've been doing, and then what you're up to now.
Okay, so to go all the way back, for those who don't know, Jacob and I met at UVM, University of Vermont, where I did my first 2 years of undergrad, transferred to UMass, graduated there with a Spanish degree in 2016. I spent a year as a middle and high school Spanish teacher with zero education training or classroom management experience. So that was a bit of a hot mess. Then after that, I moved out to Denver, where I started working in higher education, mainly in admissions, which is how I found my graduate program here in Denver at CU Denver. Got my master's in Spanish, hit up some graduate assistantships. I started getting kind of as much experience as I could while I was in the grad student realm, kind of leverage that perspective, just like we did in undergrad. And I had a grad assistantship with a career center on campus where I gained training on one-on-one coaching and how to lead presentations on grad school, how to help people decide if grad school is right for them, strategize the job search, let alone the nuances of resumes and things like that. And once I graduated, even though my degree was in Spanish, and I do teach college level Spanish classes now, which is much better than high school and middle school for me, I realized I still just really wanted to help people with resumes. A lot of friends and family have been asking me for help with this for years, for as long as I can remember. And I realized I could maybe make some money on it, do it on the side, have a side gig going. So I launched this business pretty much at the start of the pandemic, which was right before I graduated, a little bit of an overlap there in April of 2020. At that time, when I graduated, I worked for a year full-time as an academic advisor for a different college here in Denver. And then we were remote for a year for the pandemic, and we just didn't have any flexibility to stay working remote. It was a 100% return to campus at full capacity in July. And I just didn't want to do it. I just couldn't get myself to go back into that environment after being a student for so long and working in higher education for so long. I just wanted to know what else was out there. I wanted to see if I could create my own reality a bit, create my own structure. So I quit that full-time job in July and started doing AOK Resumes full-time. And I haven't looked back since.
That's wild. I really appreciate this whole story. And it's kind of similar to how I got started, where, I came out of, I was fresh out of college. And at that point, it was like, what do I do? Do I get a job? Work a full-time job for a decade or half a decade or whatever, and then start something, or do I start something right away? And so I commend you for kind of taking the leap and starting a business, pretty soon, right after you've graduated. So can you walk us through what AOK provides? I understand that's career coaching and and resume writing. But what do those services look like to some of your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So the resume kind of has two pieces. I can either do a resume review where I take your resume, I go through it, read it like a hiring committee would. I've also served on various hiring committees and admission committees to like gain that perspective, know what they're looking for, make sure you have what they're looking for essentially, and give you feedback. And then you take it, make the edits, run with it, and apply. But I also do custom resumes where I will take it and do all the legwork for you. I will tailor it to the job that you're applying to the industry or field that you're in, to make sure you have the right buzzwords to stand out throughout the application process and essentially get you into the interview. Your resume is like your ticket to the interview. You want to make sure you get in. Then, as far as career coaching goes, that's a much wider breadth of services, and that's where my passion really lies. So I like to do mock interviews of people to really prepare for those interviews. I'll research the questions that I think they will ask that are industry specific. We go through it on Zoom as if it's a real interview, or in person for people who are here in Colorado. If we have the ability to do that, I always take advantage of it, and then give feedback. So you know which of your answers are working and which ones to work on before you hit the big day. And it gives you kind of an arsenal of tools in your pocket. So when they ask you about your strengths, you and I have already talked about them, so you know a little bit of kind of where to go with that direction, because sometimes those questions can be the most scary. So I also think in this culture, we're not often taught to talk about our strengths. We're taught to minimize what we're good at because we want to be humble, but at the same time, we're self-deprecating, and that's not what you want to bring into an interview. So it's a little bit of mindset shifting. I also do coaching for salary negotiations so that we can all get paid at what we are worth, which is huge right now. And then before you even get to the interview or the salary or the counter offer or that, the beginning piece of it, even before the resume, it's just identifying, like, if you are in a toxic job right now, how do you know it's time to leave? How do you look past the golden handcuffs of the benefits and the vacation time and the paid holiday trip through your company to the Bahamas or wherever, and just see what's the true source of the discontent in your life? And is it the job? Is your job the source of depression, essentially, which it can be, because there's so much pressure to get a job right after college, right? And I mean, the average college student changes their major 3 times. It should be expected to change our careers as adults, but we feel like we have to be locked into it. We have to stay on this one linear pathway, and that linear path just is so unrealistic, and it doesn't exist. So I work with clients one-on-one to break down those expectations and stereotypes and just identify, what do we need in a job? What are our professional values, our personal values, and how can we find an opportunity that will align with that? And that alignment is what I've seen lead to not only a more positive outcome, because your personality can really shine throughout the application process, but more of a work-life balance on the other side once you actually change careers and get the new job and start something new, which is something we all really need right now.
Wow, that's great. And I think you've touched on so many hot topics right now. Like your industry is really seeing a change, mainly because of the pandemic and what people are forced to, work remotely and then reconsider coming back. And, it's giving a lot of people an inflection point of being able to make decisions on, do I really like this job or not, or am I really getting paid enough to be checking in at 9 p.m. and, missing out on book time with a kid just to file a report or something. So I really appreciate your insight into some of these things. And I think it's pretty challenging to navigate these things because it feels as though like society has not given us an opportunity to kind of do whatever we want. It's getting there in a sense, but like you mentioned, the pressures of like having a good, stable job from especially people's families is so huge. And I can think about it now, if somebody is an engineer, get paid well, whatever, and you go to a family barbecue and they're like, yeah, I quit my job because I want to, start my own business. The first question is like, well, how are you going to pull that off? Or like, do you have money saved up? Or like, what's the health benefits, especially if like you have kids or something? And so it's so wild to see people face some of those challenges with almost no support, which is just, embarrassing because it's so popular and people should feel the freedom to, do kind of whatever they want. So in that situation, how are you helping people realize that it really isn't that challenging, to take the leap, and there are better options out there for a lot of people in toxic, work environments?
Yeah, it's a tough question because it is a very high pressure situation, just like you said, societal expectations, family expectations, especially with the holidays coming up. And we'll be seeing a lot of family we might not have seen in a while, and they'll have lots of questions. And it's like, oh, what do I say? How do I explain myself? But the first step is you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You're allowed to make your own decisions. If you know that they are right for you, they don't have to make sense to anyone else. Now, if you have a family, that should hopefully be a joint decision, in partnership with the people that are closest to you in your life. But what I've been able to provide to my clients who are trying to work through some of these decisions are, number one, just resourcefulness. I show them other opportunities that are out there that are similar to what they're doing now, but might be under different management or with a company that has different values or more flexibility or just less high pressure expectations. So they can see exactly where the skills that they have will be applied elsewhere, so that they know that there are other opportunities out there. And it's not just the void and the dreaded question of, well, what do I do now? Just by helping people to find those opportunities and see, like, it exists. Now we have to get you there. Helps provide a plan, a framework, a strategy, whatever you want to call it. It helps find something tangible that they can work towards. And the other piece is really, when people hire me as a career coach, I'm like a built-in cheerleader. Anything goes wrong, you have an interview and you think you failed a question, I'm here to pump you back up to get you ready for the next one. And I think that in college, we have a lot of that support. All colleges have some kind of a career center. And a lot of those career centers do work with alumni, but without being on campus where you can just go to their office and get that support, it's hard to know where to look for it when you're flailing in the professional world trying to find your way. Just being able to check in with me just to say, like, hey, I just heard back from this company and I have an interview next week. That can start a conversation of, oh my God, great. What are you nervous about for in the interview? What are you excited about? Like, congratulations, give yourself credit for getting this far. I really just want to give people credit for the work that they've done and how far that they've come. And if they need somebody in their corner, that's me, just to help keep them going.
And that's so important. And I think it continues to be something that we really need as a society is a check-in every once in a while, somebody on your side. A lot of these conversations are handled, with friends or family, but they don't always go how they should, because a lot of those people have biased opinions. For example, if you're asking your spouse about changing a job and it's going to incur, maybe a drastic salary decrease, that person might, and rightfully so, they might have a biased opinion because their lifestyle might have to change because of that. However, if there's somebody on their side like you, who is really, you're for, fulfillment and happiness and, what's best for the person, regardless of what changes they may have to make, they might come to a different outcome. So I think that's really special. And I'm really happy that people like you are doing this kind of work. What gets you excited to work with some of these new graduates?
The new graduates are so fun to work with, because I think that, I give millennials and Gen Z a lot of credit, because I think we are really starting to be the catalyst of change in today's job market. We are very key members of the Great Resignation, or as they're calling it right now, where we're starting to see, if we're not being treated well by a company, we have many other options, and we will take those other options. And I think that a lot of the time we get a bad reputation for job jumping. But I think we can just recognize when a situation is no longer serving us, either the job description has evolved and is no longer what we signed up for, which I felt in various positions of mine in the past, or we have evolved and our needs have changed. Maybe now we have a family and we just need to get paid more, or we traveled and saw something that we wouldn't see in our everyday office lifestyle, and now we want to change our lifestyle and have a job that will fit that and be aligned with that. So I think that there's just so many possibilities for new graduates right now. I think they can really run the gamut of seeing not only what will be a good job, not only the job that they will fit into, but what job will be a good fit for them. I think so often we feel like we owe the company everything and we have to change who we are to fit the company, but that only leads to burnout. I think the new generation's got an edge on us. I don't think they're going to do that in the first place. I think they're going to hold their standards a bit higher and make sure that the jobs that they're looking for are aligned with who they are, so that they will not get to that burnout moment. And if they do, they're not afraid to leave. And I really respect that.
Yeah. And that makes me think of, like, I just wish that job descriptions were so much more detailed and had other things in it. Like, this is the type of lifestyle that a lot of our employees have, like, I don't know, like busy. They don't even typically share like the busy times of the year or the busy times of the day. Like, for example, we want you to work 9 to 5, but just so you'll have heavy meetings in the afternoon or something like that. So, and if you don't share any of that stuff, then you're basically soliciting for a lot of candidates, and some of them just can't make that happen, right? They do their deep work in the afternoon and they, can't be in meetings or something. So I think there is a bit of a disconnect that might have to change if with this new wave of employees, we might have to get a little more specific about what we're asking for and what we, expect from our employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I think transparency is really key there. And what I like to do and what I advise all of my clients to do and anybody else watching this is when you're in an interview with a company, turn the interview around. You are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And something I always ask when I do interviews myself is, what I understand the job description, but what is a day in the life? What does a typical day look like? Like, what is the flow? Just to get a better idea of what to expect, because you don't know. You can't read 200 words as a PDF or something that's posted on Indeed and have a true picture of what your life is going to be like when you dedicate 40 hours a week to that position. It's so different. I think that is a huge disconnect right now, and I'd like to see it improve.
Yeah. And even like, hey, can I come in and just watch like whoever's doing my current role, for a day, especially if it's like, a serious job, which most of these obligations are like pretty serious. Like you intend to spend, half your life there sometimes, at least in the short term. So, why aren't there other opportunities to like see what it's like? Is this actually a good fit? It seems like it would be mutually beneficial. However, from the employer side, I guess that's logistically kind of complex, but it's the same thing with this salary thing. It's like none of these job descriptions have a salary, and that just doesn't make any sense to me, because you can have an account executive, right? The same role, maybe even they're doing the same things, but depending on the industry and the company, they could be making 30 grand or 130. It's like, and the person that's coming from another company that's an account executive wants to apply, but they need to make sure that, the salary is the 131 and not the 30, because they can't afford it. And it just seems ludicrous that we don't include at least a range for a majority of the business, job descriptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, half of the clients that I work with, the reason they want a new job is because they want to get paid more. So while we're going through the job search together, we can't find any postings that have the salary listed. It's like, how do you know if it's worth your time applying to and going through the whole interview process, which we all know is never just one interview. It's a phone interview, a Zoom interview, an in-person interview. Sometimes there's 2, 3, 4, and then you get to the end and find out it's a $30,000 a year salary. And I think they do that because they know if they posted it was only $30,000 a year, that nobody would apply. Or entry-level positions like fresh students would apply. But even a fresh student deserves to make more than, or a fresh graduate deserves to make more than $30,000 a year. We've got student loans to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I think it seems like a bit of a power dynamic, but there might be a shift. I think you're onto something where, we're going to demand, or people that are looking for jobs nowadays are going to demand more upfront, in regards to like, give me the salary, benefits, what it's like to work there, culture, all this stuff. I think we might see a bit of a change, and the companies that want good people are going to bend, and others will break, and that's just how it goes.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think a lot of companies who aren't offering that transparency or flexibility for their employees are definitely going to lose some really, really quality individuals. And the ones who can accommodate it, that's where we'll all go.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Any advice for someone trying to identify and showcase their skills?
Yes. My 2 pieces of advice for somebody who feels like they don't know what they're doing is, number 1, make a list of everything that you do in a day. for your job description, things that you do at home, things that you do that bring you joy. And then from that list, you can identify, okay, what do I do that I'm good at, but that I don't necessarily like? And then categorize into another section, what do I do that I'm good at that I really do like? And anything that's in that bubble, those are the qualities you're going to look for in future job descriptions. Those are your strengths, things that you are good at and things that you like. We all have things that we're good at, but that we don't like. Like I'm great at data entry, but if I'm sitting in front of spreadsheets all day, I'll go crazy. So I should not look for a job for myself that would involve those spreadsheets, because I know that would also lead to burnout. Now, within those daily tasks, pay attention to the things that you know you don't like and that you are not good at, because that's just a recipe for disaster. We don't look for any jobs that has to do with us. Those are our weaknesses. And some weaknesses, I think that sometimes it's okay to let them be weaknesses. Like, I'm a huge maximizer. I want to take my strengths, see them, and run with them. I don't want to worry about the things I'm not good at. Other people would argue, well, if I'm not good at it, then I should learn. And if you feel motivated to do that and you can transform it into a strength, then by all means, go for it. But if it's going to lead to burnout, if it's going to cause more frustration than pride, then I would avoid it at all costs and just focus on those strengths and those skills that you are good at that put you in some kind of a flow or a state of flow. And those are the skills that you'll see in a job that will make you feel fulfilled. A few other options are to do assessments like the Myers-Briggs assessment. I'm a huge fan. I'm an ENFP. There's the Enneagram assessment and Clifton Strengths. I've done multiple times throughout different jobs. A lot of companies pay for their employees to do that for team building activities. Clifton Strengths is great because it tells you your top 5 strengths. So then when an interviewer asks you, what are your strengths? You have 5 you can list. So those are great too. And then another option is to hire a career coach. We can work together. And if it's hard for you to make the lists and get to categorize them and to see what puts you in a state of flow, just by having a conversation, I can help highlight some of those for you, give you a list at the end of our meeting, and then you know what to take it and run with it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people may not think about that option. Although, somebody like you, a career coach, a good career coach, is going to provide much more. However, at the basic, at the bare minimum, they're going to tease out a couple things that maybe you weren't willing to do the work on your own, which, I'm a big fan of. Like, okay, let's hire this person. Sure, I could do my own counseling, or I could do my own coaching or whatever if I sit with myself for a minute. However, I know that I won't, I'm just not going to do it. And so if I schedule it out, I'm going to have somebody ask the same questions that I would ask myself, but something's going to get done. I'm going to share some stuff. We're going to, put it on a document, and then there we go. I'm that much closer to my goal of getting a new job or whatever it is. So I think that those are wonderful, wonderful tips.
Thank you.
Any advice for somebody struggling with a resume, and also any insight into like why resume writing it feels a little taboo. Like it doesn't feel as common as it should, or is that just me? It seems like people only pick it up when they need a job desperately, but they're not continually adding to it. Can you talk about that disconnect maybe?
Yeah. So I have a lot to say about resumes. First of all, writing resumes, for a lot of people, that's like the first step in having to find a new job. They think like, oh, I want to leave this, but then I have to update my resume. And is updating a piece of paper really what's keeping you from leaving the job you want to leave and finding what's next? So I think that can be like the symbol of change, or the symbol of like, oh, this is actually happening. I have to do this now. Or just the fact that it's something you have to do makes us all procrastinate and run in the other direction. That's one idea. Another is that, job searching is exhausting. Myself, the last job search that I did, the average job search lasts about 6 months. And from when I left my student position to when I found my full-time position, it was about 6 months. And I submitted over 50 applications in that period of time. And that's not even that many compared to some of the clients that I've worked with. So I think that to some people, the resume just feels hopeless before you even start. But that's where resume strategy is key. And the reason we need a strategy, so the whole system and how it works, is that since the majority, like I'd say 90 at least % of job applications are online, your resume is submitted online, right? It goes through what's called either a resume tracking system or an applicant tracking system, ATS or RTS. And that system gives your resume a score. And the more keywords you have in your resume that are related to the job itself and the industry, the higher score you get. And you get placed towards the top of the pile when a human actually looks at it and is looking to see who they will interview. And you increase your chances of getting an interview when you play into the system and you use those keywords and tailor it to the opportunities. However, many people don't want to build their resume from scratch. They want to use a template that's on Google or Pinterest or Microsoft Word even. And those templates all have these predetermined boxes of where to input the information. And the resume tracking systems cannot read those boxes. They read them as a foreign character, unfamiliar text, and they throw the resume out before it ever has a chance to get to the person. So a lot of people think that the templates are going to be a shortcut. It's going to make it easier. It tells you exactly what to write and where to write it, but it will never get through that tracking system, and it will only increase the level of frustration. As for why people aren't just casually updating their resumes and only do it when it's absolutely necessary, is I think that we just get comfortable in the jobs that we're in and we don't want to think about leaving until we absolutely have to. Even the jobs that I've had in the past, like I've had some really shady things go down at jobs in the past, and I've still stayed there months, if not years longer than I should, just because I felt like I had to. That was my stability, and I needed to give them everything that I had, even though they were really taking everything that I had, and I had nothing left for myself at the end of the day. So I think that as humans, we feel we need to be at that like pivotal moment of it's now or never to actually like take action, do the document, and apply elsewhere.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's a lot.
I'm just thinking about it. This is incredible. I think I'm really impressed that you know so much about like just the inner workings of even like the psychology of some of this stuff. And I think it's funny that, although not fun for a lot of people, the resume does get caught up as kind of like it's your ticket. And some people blame the resume with other things that they're trying to deal with, you know, whether or not they want to leave, they have a great team, but they hate their specific boss, you know, like all these things are like, oh, how am I going to pay my mortgage when I, you know, am looking for a job for 6 months? Like that's insane. And one thing that I thought of that I think is a really cool idea, and you might be able to tell me if I'm losing it or not. But I know some people that, you know, they're fully employed and they're full-time employed and they're, you know, pretty content with their job. However, they take interviews with other companies at you know, just a couple times a year or whatever, every 6 months or something, just to see how the industry is stacking up salary wise, benefit wise, you know. And I think something like that is a good way to keep your resume up to date, good way to keep your interview skills and also your options open, because, you know, at the end of the day, the ability for a business to fire you in one day is totally unfair. And you should have the ability to, you know, be hired in one day somewhere else. So what's your take on a strategy like that?
I'm a big fan. I think that's a great strategy. I've had people ask me if I think that's unethical to be consistently job searching while you have a job. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think that it is a very strategic way to be consistently evaluating the job market and seeing what kind of opportunities are out there. And like I said before too, like the longer we stay in a position and just the longer we move throughout our lives, we're going to evolve and our interests should evolve as we go. And if we find an opportunity a few years down the line that's more aligned with what we want to do, the person that we want to be, just because you're at a good job now doesn't mean you shouldn't apply to that opportunity on the table too. I think that's a really strategic way to maintain the stability that you have, keep your options open, continue learning about the job market so that you can be kind of the cutting edge of it, kind of ahead of the game. And that way you're not searching frantically either. You don't have panic behind you as you're applying elsewhere. It's a much more, I think, conducive, like mental health conducive approach to job searching. They say, the collective they, right, that the best time to find a job is when you have a job for this exact reason. I know that's not always the luxury for a lot of people, but I think it's a very good strategy if you can afford to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. What was the best part of your day?
The best part of my day today?
Yes.
This podcast, honestly, I've been looking forward to it. This morning I had kind of a slow morning. I went and got my Starbucks. I was very excited to see that it was snowing for the first time. So that was definitely joyful, but I'm happy to have somebody to interact with, somebody new to talk about what I love to do. And I really miss having these interactions in person more often, but I'm grateful that, we can be connected from miles and miles apart. And I really thrive off of human connection, and I'm just grateful for this moment. So thank you.
I'm in the same boat. And I also thank you for sharing this new flavor with me. It's very tasty. I've almost completely finished this.
Good.
Okay. Last thing here, I know that people will watch this and they'll probably want to reach out to you, especially because we touched on, every stage of a professional at this point. So where can people find you, reach you, beep you? What do you got?
There's lots of options. I can be found on LinkedIn as AOK Resumes. I have a website, aokresumes.com. Easy, simple, great to find. My email is aok.resumeconsulting@gmail.com. Those are going to be the best ways to contact me directly. Another option is Instagram. I spend a lot of my time creating content for Instagram. My handle is just @AOK Resumes. And that's where I'll post free resume tips and cover letter tips and LinkedIn profile revamp advice, and also just insight to what I'm doing, what I'm up to, what kind of special offers I have going on right now, any kind of seasonal discounts or upcoming events. So that's where you'll get the most up-to-date information on kind of what's coming down the pipeline, as well as free career advice. You can also contact me directly there too.
Perfect. Thank you. So many resources. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.